Hello humans, welcome back to part 2 of the run track breakdown. Last time we looked at a bunch of things, this time we look at a bunch of other things. Let's start our computers and get the DAWs running. See what I did there?
Run.
Then we go into the drop, and on the one of the drop we have this pad still going to kind of let the vibe there, but then slowly disappear. And it's just fading out. And I think most importantly in this composition is that in the beginning you heard the chords over and over again. So first you were establishing the housey groove. Then with the chords coming more in, you're establishing like the harmonic structure of the song. And as everything gets louder and wider and brighter, you kind of lose yourself in the feeling. And then when it drops, it comes back to the groove. And so I don't play all of the chords. I just play the one chord, repeat it for 3 bars, and then go to the last chord and then back to the one chord. And I think that's very important in the beginning to have this sort of drop feeling and not having it to be too repetitive. And since I wanted this to be very minimal, I used a very basic sub. This OCA isn't even doing anything, is it? Ah yeah, okay. Ah yeah, it's doing the FM. Alright, so in the beginning it's just a sine sub. And if you're very clever, you already notice that the sub is now playing what the toms were playing, only it's not playing the fifths, it's playing the octave, but it's the same house groove. So we kind of established the drop before we heard it with the toms there in the last chords going up. And there are some special moments here and there to keep the listener engaged while other stuff is happening. And I also find it interesting that with the simple FM from this other oscillator, the bass from just being a sine wave basically, getting into the territory of an electronic bass guitar. Also very important, I hear these noise hits just to have a very bright thing, and then these vocal bits. These are pretty random, just samples I looked up from supplies, I think. It's just in the background to keep the atmosphere going. Yeah, the main thing is definitely the bass, and then these bits, little glitch sounds that I recorded from another polygrid, and we look into that now. There's this other kind of modular synth which is called Buchla, and it's an old synthesizer, and it's I think there are also new ones because of course modular synths are hyped now, so you can buy one now. There is a free Buchla clone for Reactor. Now when I opened this up, I thought like, sure, I understand modular, but this is a little bit different. It works different, and it's also very hard to use because you have this kind of connection matrix here on the back of it, so to speak, and all the modules, because of course we have to be very fancy and everything has just numbers and not names, and so you have to connect it with this list which absolutely doesn't say anything, and so it's very hard to use. But there's this preset, and it's doing this very nice chirps. I wonder how they came to be, so I dissected the preset and kind of rebuilt it in the polygrid. I basically took some of the modules from the Buchla, found out what they are doing and how they are connected, and rebuilt them in this grid, the Pt.2 modular environment. And of course, it doesn't sound exactly the same, but I think it's usable. I just recorded a whole bunch of bleeps and bloops from that polygrid, and then put them in here, put some delay on it here and there, and arrange them so they fit the mood of the track. And also, what's very important is that there's reverb on the samples and it gets cut off. And I think that's one of the most used techniques from us, that we like to play with reverb. Like, you think it's a reverb just fading out, but then suddenly it gets cut off and then it has a feel of it's just a sample. One more information that's really interesting about Buchla is they have volume envelopes, the thing that makes the oscillator go quiet after a while. You know what a volume envelope is, right? The difference in the Buchla is that it also has a kind of filtering to it. I think it's a little bit like the 60p per octave filter in Serum. There's not much happening, it's making it quieter, and also it has a kind of phasey slur to it, those volume envelopes, and that's very interesting in the Buchla sound, and I would love to have one, so please buy our music. I think the most rewarding bit in the track is when it suddenly switches to a more full chordy sound here. Now there are two things happening. First of all, there's a bigger clap coming in that wasn't there before. Then this drum groove. How I built those percussions is I also just recorded with my MacBook mic and just hitting things and stuff. Then I took slices of that and played those slices to make the percussion loop. And there's some EQing going on, so it seems like I have too many EQs here, but yeah, sometimes that happens if you work fast. You don't give a damn about it. And also, so the whole noise in this is coming from my MacBook being overheated. And then there's a second version of the chords. It's based on the first patch. So yeah, you have almost the same LFO shapes here. But of course there's a different noise, there's much more going on with the filter. And you have this second oscillator that is doing pulse width stuff. Now that's the second oscillator only. As you see, I turned up the pulse wave modulation very high, so you only have the small bit, and then I play the oscillator very low. And what happens is that you get this sort of clicky percussion-y bits that are high frequency because the pulse wave modulation is so high. But there's a lot of space between them because of the pulse wave modulation, and so you hear them as clicks. Yeah, sounds like a percussion recording or something. And yeah, the basic saw wave, it's only one saw wave, it's all you need. And I think the noise is there to soften the sound, but also to kind of hide a little bit of the digital pulse wave sound, so it sounds even more organic. Crazy tilt EQ on it to bring up the highs and even more high bumps here. That's the same macro closing the filter as in the first version. Then as I bounce it out, there's more going on, especially for the ending. So I also use the same filter reverb to make it disappear. And here's another polygrid thing. It comes in very clicky and then plays a melody. I have no idea how I built it, because if I built those grid sounds, I spent like one evening building those and going really deep. and then I just save it and forget about them. Then I have this other grid effect, which is called superposition. It's doing a stereo thingy, a little bit similar to the grain thing, only that it's much more random and placing the sounds in the stereo field. Yeah, and then in the end, it's just a vocal sample, pitch down, and a little melody again, and a lovely synth to go out of this, and also samples of the pads and the ARP. Going out of this song. I think I talked a lot about the song. I think it's special. The whole arrangement is special. I don't want it to be like this typical housey, okay, it builds up, and then we have a drop, and then goes back down. I want it to be like a short story that is evolving, and that's, yeah, that has this like fulfilling moment, but it's mostly about the atmosphere, the ambience, and the rhythm, and the feeling of the song, and not so much about what it's saying and its attitude. I hope you enjoy it. It's out now on Spotify and everywhere, but you can also buy it on our Bandcamp since we released it ourselves. So if you want to support us, this is a very good way, and you can also get our sample packs there that are still up. Thank you for watching, and we see you next time.